The first thing that we want to do is actually remove the wiring harnesses connected to the components on the boiler. There's one other wire that we do want to remove at this point, and there is a ground wire that is connected from the chassis of the boiler to the igniter. The other wire that we want to remove is the ignition cable, and that simply pulls off the igniter, and we'll just set that aside. So we're going to remove the clamp on the gas line and gently pull down on the air intake piping or the silencer, and we'll set that aside. We also need to remove the gas line using a couple of wrenches here, and this is a compression fitting. We simply want to loosen that up and remove it. The next step then would be removing the nuts on the heat exchanger cover plate. So I'll just use a socket, loosen these nuts all up. After removing all the nuts, and careful not to get hung up on any wiring, but we're simply going to grab the assembly and gently pull it towards you. We need to actually do 3 passes on the heat exchanger. We're just going to run that tool in until I knock all those pieces of debris down in the bottom of the heat exchanger. And so we'll continue that process all the way up to the top, and then we'll repeat the process on the other side. I said we do this 3 different ways. The second pass, in this case, I'll go downward, but again, I want to go downward on a 45-degree angle, and I'm wiping another third of the pin here. So that would be the last pass, all the way up on a 45-degree angle. And you just kind of have to feel your way through it. Along with the rotting out or the cleaning tool, it's recommended that you take a garden hose. And again, we're not talking about power washing here. And if it's done properly, we don't get water all over everywhere. The water simply goes down the condensate trap. It goes into the condensate pump, or it goes to the drain. We're going to start with the number 9mm socket, and I'm going to remove a nut. And I'll do the other one in just a moment, but that holds the blower assembly to the manifold. So the burner is mounted on top of the gasket material. So to change the gasket material, you have to remove the burner. So now I've removed the bolts that hold the burner to the cover plate, and I'm simply going to pull the burner off. At that point, and you can do this earlier as well. I don't think there's any real time frame here, but what I'm doing is I'm removing the igniter. Now we simply remove the insulation and discard it. I'm going to take the gasket and reinstall the new gasket. The top side of the gasket is ribbed. The ribbed surface faces upward. We don't want to stretch the gasket when we install it. We just simply want to kind of put it into the rope groove. The next step really involves installing a new gasket on the burner, and we'll just lay that in place for right now. But and there's a little pin, it just drops in place. But before I remount the burner, I need to clean it. You need to take a non-metallic bristle brush, okay? And you need to brush the dust and debris out of this burner. Put the burner back on the new insulation, line it up with the holes, and again, the flat spot in the flange is oriented where the igniter would go through. You put the screw keeper down and the bolt goes through it. And then you put it in the hole. And gently tighten that bolt down. Repeat that process until all burner bolts have been reinstalled. Now, following the tightening procedure described in the maintenance instructions, we need to get an inch-pound torque wrench and torque these down to 50 inch-pounds. We're going to take a number 20 Torx, and there's just a couple screws here that we're going to remove. If you look inside the Venturi, there is a slot that goes all the way around the perimeter of the Venturi. So we take a small, again, non-metallic bristle brush and we clean out that slot. I'm going to reinstall the Venturi onto the blower. Again, I'm not tightening that screw all the way at this point until I've located the other one. And how tight do you tighten these screws? You tighten them as tight as you can get them, all right? We want an airtight, gas-tight seal on that cork gasket. We're done with this assembly. We're ready to put that back onto the cover plate. One remaining gasket I'm removing here is a rubber gasket between the blower assembly and the cover plate. So we'll reinstall the new gasket on there. And then switch to our 9mm socket to complete the installation process. And we have completed the cleaning and servicing of the Venturi. And we've cleaned the heat exchanger. So what we're going to do is simply reassemble, again, the components, and we're gently going to put the cover plate back on the boiler. And once that guy's on there, then we can go ahead and put all the nuts back on. And once we have all the nuts on finger tight, we're going to take our socket wrench and we're going to tighten them up just hand tight only. And we're going to actually start in the center and work our way radially outward. So now we're on the last step of fastening the heat exchanger cover plate to the heat exchanger. Following the instructions in the manual, it says to set a torque of 50 to 60 inch-pounds on the nuts. After all the nuts have been tightened on the heat exchanger, we'll proceed to reattaching the gas line. So once the gas line has been reinstalled, it's time to reattach the wiring. So I'll start with the ground wire that attaches to the igniter. At that point, we can put the igniter cable on. Make sure you hear it click when you put it on the igniter. We need a good connection there. The next step would be to attach the rest of the boiler wiring. Okay, all the wires have been reconnected. We've put the boiler back together. There's only one other piece that we need to reinstall besides the door, and that would be the air silencer. So at this point, we're going to turn the boiler back on electrically, and we're going to open the gas connection to the boiler. After it goes through its loading menu, we want to reset our maintenance reminder, and that's why the screen is red. So we'll go in and unlock this guy, go into the technician's level, and go down to maintenance information, highlight the file, press the center button to open that file, and down here it says reset reminder. So highlight that, simply press the center button, and it will advance the maintenance reminder for another 12 months.